Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Taste Media Group Intelligence Series. This afternoon, we are joined by Brian Bauer of the 100 Waters Group, a business advisory firm. Brian, thanks a lot for your time this afternoon.
Absolutely.
And so getting straight into it, can you kind of describe what your firm does and how you approach it?
Absolutely. So we work with small business owners, anywhere from 100,000 in top line revenue to about 18 million in top line revenue. And we help them do three things. One, we work on corporate strategy, helping them figure out where they want to be in 5 years. Two, we help them with sort of skill development. So if you think about high school, as a student in high school, you had to take all the subjects. And I was really good at math and terrible at German. And that sort of analogy applies to small business ownership. So they're really good at sales, but maybe terrible at finance. So we help them sort of fill in those gaps and tutor them in the areas where they might be a C+ student. And then the last thing we do, which is critical, is accountability. So holding folks sort of accountable to, hey, you said you were going to do this thing, you want to hit this goal, let's get there.
And what made you want to transition into this consultancy role versus working in an actual business?
Yeah, so I have, my family owns a business, my dad owns a business, my uncle, I have 3 uncles that own businesses, and I've watched them have various levels of success and sort of learn some very hard lessons and very expensive lessons. I had a startup back in the day. I learned some very expensive lessons, sort of $100,000 on a tech startup that disappeared. And so, I have this sort of strong motivation to try and help small business owners sort of learn those lessons faster, cheaper, maybe avoid the lesson altogether. And I really love seeing sort of their success.
And when you're talking to the small business owners and you're trying to really, describe or get into the weeds on how this problem could grow, but they're not really taking to your advice or seeing that as a problem, how do you pivot that conversation and say, look, you really have to focus on this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So certainly there are some clients who just candidly don't want to grow their business, and they're not a great client for me. And there are a number of reasons for that. One, you could be at a stage of life where you just are sort of content with where you're at, or for whatever reason, you're just not sort of motivated to put in the work to get to the next level. That's totally okay. I like working with business owners who have hit a particular plateau, let's call it maybe 500,000 in revenue, $1 million in revenue, or $2 million in revenue, and they've really been beating their head against the wall because they can't quite get to the next plateau. So 500 to $1 million, or $1 million to $2 million. So in the case of that, we've already sort of pre-identified that clients are interested in getting to that next plateau, and then it really just becomes, sort of a tough conversation where I look at a business owner like yourself, Thatcher, and I say, Thatcher, you said you wanted to buy a lake house. You said you wanted to buy that Porsche. You said you wanted to do this thing. Like, hey, I know you don't really want to make that extra sales call, or you don't want to hire that person, or you don't want to fire that person. But you got to do it if we're going to get to those goals that you set out that you wanted to do.
So it's really goal mapping that you start with and then kind of reverse engineer that.
Yeah, and it's not even so much personal goals as it is what is it that you're looking to accomplish in your business. So much about small business ownership is we get into small business ownership because we want some freedom, we want some flexibility, we want some financial freedom. And so it's reminding the business owner that we're not in it to bake pies or to do that service call or to deliver that next delivery. We're in it really because we love what we do, but also we wanted some financial freedom, some flexibility. And so when you refocus the conversation back on the original reason why they got into small business, it helps sort of bring joy back into the business, and that's the fun part.
And what type of businesses, since you've been doing this, have you seen kind of just change more rapidly than you would have ever imagined? Is there a certain sector that you've seen, or do you feel like when you're growing with your clients, sometimes you're not even acknowledging how quickly these things have changed versus the way business was done 5 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, good question. So let me start by saying I have a very diverse group of clients. Anything from, I have a company that provides the equivalent of plastic bags for the cannabis industry, to a wholesale used office furniture company, to a vegan gluten-free bakery. A previous client was a children's daycare center, so it's all over the board. What I'll say is, almost all of those businesses have double-digit growth, anywhere from 20 to 60% growth, and in some cases 100% growth. And so I can't say that there's one industry that's growing faster than another. What's really critical, though, is finding sort of a business owner who is super excited about taking that next step and really committed to it.
So again, we're here with Brian Bauer of the 100 Waters Group. And Brian, when it comes to being a small business consultant, what type of personality do you have to be successful in this?
So I think the best business consultants are folks that have been in the trenches running a business for a number of years. There's nothing like experience, because you run up with situations that you maybe have never encountered yourself. And so how can you pull from, or you need to be able to pull from experience that you've had and say, this is analogous to something I experienced before. Because there are so many unique, weird situations, whether you're winding down a business, ramping up a business, finding funding, hiring people, firing people, et cetera. It's just a lot of variability in the needs. And then the second thing is, I think you need to be a really good mentor coach and want to have that personality. Somebody who is interested in helping people sort of develop their own sort of skills, not necessarily as the advisor take the credit for it, but really sort of enable them and teach them and help them sort of be the best that they are. Those are the kind of the two traits that I would look for.
And you mentioned about funding and finding capital. How do you recommend for small business owners to go that route? Or when do you recommend it, or is it kind of a case by case?
Yeah.
Scenario?
So most of the business owners that I'm working with are not venture backed. And when we use the word startup, we oftentimes think of sort of a venture backed startup. A lot of these businesses are startups. They just aren't necessarily going to become the next unicorn, the next billion-dollar company. And so in a lot of cases, we're not going out and we're not looking for investors per se, but we're really going out and tapping into, what are sort of the bank loans, what are the SBA? There's some great community organizations that provide financing for whether it be female entrepreneurs or women-owned businesses or other underrepresented groups. So how can you tap into some of those resources that make sense? Fundamentally, though, at the most of the business that I work with, all the business I work with, you have to have a fundamental business. Like you have to have something that is sound, makes sense, makes money, in order to be able to take on some of these products.
And for you, what's the most rewarding part of being a consultant?
Yeah, so my favorite part about my job is my clients view me as part of the team, and so I'll get a text message in the middle of the day. They'll say, "Hey, I closed this deal," or "Hey, this thing is happening. I just wanted to let you know." And you have the opportunity to give them a high five. By the same token, it's not my favorite part, but you get those phone calls that's like, "Hey, this thing fell apart. I didn't get that deal," and you're able to sort of spend that moment with them and kind of rally them and think and look towards the future. But truly, it's being sort of part of that team and helping them sort of achieve their goals. That's the thing that I love.
And for people that are going to be watching this out there who have maybe considered going into consulting,
Yeah.
you have people, do you find it somebody who comes from a marketing background, a finance background, maybe more of an engineering background? I mean, who can find success or find this as a valid career path?
Sure. So consulting is a broad term, and certainly there are folks who go into consulting that are very specific and good at in their particular field. For the type of work that I do, which is business advising, you really need a generalist, somebody who is 80% good at everything or 70% good at everything, and then I'm try and sort of recommend that when you need somebody who's an expert in marketing, an expert in video production, that you can find those experts out there, and my job then becomes to help them identify the expert, vet the expert, and then manage the expert as we move the business to the next level instead of doing.
So Brian, we covered a lot here today on Taste Media Group Intelligence Series. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Again, Brian Bauer from the 100 Waters Group. Thank you very much everyone for watching, and stay tuned. We'll have a new episode next week.